Session 33, and you can see that I'm really excited because we're going to talk about catalyst in programming. Let's begin. All right, the reason why I am so excited about talking on catalyst and programming is because I feel that this is one of the most important aspects of our tools that we have of understanding how evolution of the soul is, the experience of human form or our third density reality, what we're doing here, our purpose is. It answers, in essence, for the seeker who is familiarized already with the model of what are the densities of consciousness, how do they relate to our seven chakras, and the rest of the information that we know of how this reality works. Then it becomes an just unvaluable tool to work with and to know at all times, because it can be used on every single experience, and it actually should be used, for those who are in the known, for every single experience. So we're gonna go in the session. There is a couple of questions that we have to go through before we get to Catalyst itself, or the programming of Catalyst. And I wanted to include them, of course, even though I'm really, I'm excited to get to the part when we get to the catalyst and how programming works and what that means. But there's a couple of questions that we're going to cover. Again, session starts with Don asking something about the contact itself. We're going to get into that. And then we talk about some colors, color therapy that was kind of like a thing in the 80s. And we'll go through that too. Which actually has a couple of things that are important to realize, what the true work, really is, and, where it lies. So again, I have my mind only on the catalyst, but we'll go through the session, we'll finish with that, and we'll go into the second part of this session in the next video. So let's start without getting too much involved with other things with the session itself. And this is Don saying, in our last session, you caution each to look well to the vital energies necessary for non-depletion of the instrument and the contact level. Did that mean that that Jim and I should look at the instruments, or be careful of the instrument's vital energies, or be careful of our own vital energies? So this question goes into something that Ross said in the last session, if you remember. So Ra's going to answer this awareness of vital energies in saying, each entity is responsible for itself. The mechanics of this process taking place involve, firstly, the use of the physical bodily complex of third density with its accompanying physical material in order to voice these words. Thus, this instrument needs to watch its vital energies carefully, for we do not wish to deplete this instrument. Now, all right, so let's make a pause here and go back to what Don is asking. He's asking about what Ra mentioned on the vital energies that need to be watched over because it's important for the contact is enormous. Now, vital energies are referring to the energy that our etheric body has, that it naturally possesses and is capable of managing for the incarnation. So it's almost like there's a buffering of energies that can be allowed for the physical complex. And this is my speculation based on the little knowledge that I have. Like this is important metaphysics that I just kind of have a grasp on it. So don't take my words for granted. But this is why we go to sleep. That is that energy that scientists cannot understand. What do we do when we sleep? What is it in the brain that's processing? And as usual, scientists tend to see the symptoms, just like our medical system, or at least our Western medical system. works. They only see the symptoms, what has manifested already, and then believe that that is, the root and everything from it. They don't see the energetics of it, or the internal ones, or the metaphysics. Again, this is a result of Western civilization basing everything from observation and understanding of the physical nature, and completely ignoring at times, or in general just completely ignoring the metaphysics and how this relates, like how they're intertwined. So because of that, we have this inability to see what's happening as a whole. So again, the vital energies for me, it's sort of what's like, it's replenished from our sleeping cycle, and that is what makes us feel energetic or tired sometimes. Of course, there is an analog, which is calories, or our physical energy, how energized we feel, and that depends on the physical chemical bodies, how much we take care of it. So there must be a balance there. In any case, not to go on a tangent here, the thing is that this vital energy is important, so it needs to be taken care of. Vital energy is not like you don't take care of it with your actions here. Of course you do. That's why you have meditation. That's why you look for a non-stressful life, because this allows more vital energy, which is pure spiritual energy. This is also related with your spiritual growth, depending on where you are in relation to the potential of growth that you have. And we'll get to some of this, when we talk about catalysts and programming. But depending on where you are at, you can allow this spirit, again, the spiritual complex is like a channel, a shuttle by which intelligent infinity can be channeled. So in the same sense, your spiritual growth is almost like working out a muscle that by working out with resistance training, you can enhance the capacity of the fibers to allow for work. And this work, in the analogy that I'm using, is the energy that comes from spirit, and that energizes the body through vital energies. So in any case, and again, I said I'm not going to go on a tangent here, but this is also very exciting, to know. So this, in terms of what the question was asked, like, how do we manage those energies, is what Don was asking. So Ra is saying, and this is quite important to know. They say each entity is responsible for itself, meaning that the majority of our energy management comes from the self itself, and the self being the mind primarily, and then the body. So, and spirit, of course, like I said, is relatable to the spiritual growth that we have, how much of that we allow, and how much we're not involved with the 3D illusion that sort of like subtract a lot of energy from us. That stressful life that I meant a couple of minutes ago. So they keep on saying, the mechanics of this process taking place involve, firstly, the use of the physical bodily complex of third density, which is with its accompanying physical material, in order to voice these words. So for the contact itself, because they're relating the vital energies to the contact, there is a use of energy by the physical bodily complex that has this toll on the vital energies. For you to move, you have to have some sort of investment in vital energies. Remember, this contact was not like, there was somebody talking to Carla, on her ear, and she was, muttering the words. This was a narrow band contact between a sixth density being, Ra, and a third density being, or third density, a physical complex here, which was Carla's, the instrument. And the narrow band meant that there was like a very narrow frequency that could be transmitted, and the communication or the connection had to be very pure. So, for them to even move Carla's vocal cords was a strong effort, and it required a lot of vital energy. So that's why it was very important. There were some times where they were actually like move her hand slightly because she was getting pain, and to alleviate the pain, they kind of move her hand. So you can see how very little energy they were using to maintain this contact. So In any case, they keep on going. Thus, this instrument needs to watch its vital energies carefully, for we do not wish to deplete this instrument. And, in essence, this is just Ra saying, we're very respectful of Carla. We don't want to use her vital energies because we want to give information. Like, we are very grateful of using her, as an instrument. And because I'm saying the word instrument, I would like to say that perhaps the best way to describe or define this word in this context is not an instrument like a tool. It's an instrument as a musical instrument that can be played, because that's what we are. We are a tone poem, as Ra says, which, depending on our balance and our alignment, we play a tune. We play a very unique tune, which is the mind, body, spirit, complex uniqueness of music, which is us. We are the music of this creation's melody. Let's put it that way, poetically. So, again, that's what they're saying there. Next part, they say, secondly, the function of the supporting group may be seen to be, firstly, that of protection for this contact. Secondly, that of energizing the instrument and intensifying its vital energies. Now, this the function of the supporting group may be seen to be, firstly, okay, so now they say secondly twice. So secondly, that's the first part, what we discussed already. The second part is the function of the supporting group, which again may be seen in A, the protection of this contact, for this contact, which is, what they did to protect the contact, the way they perform everything. And second, that of energizing the instrument and intensifying its vital energies. There's more to say this, and I'll make the final comments. So, Ra says, this supporting group has always, due to an underlying harmony, been of a very stable nature as regards protection and love and light, thus ensuring the continuation of this narrow band contact. However, the vital energies of either of the supporting members being depleted, the instrument must then use a larger portion of its vital energies, thus depleting itself more than would be profitable on a long-term basis. Okay, so there's two things. One is like the will that they use, and their intention, let's put it that way, because the three of them had such a great harmony between the three of them. It's almost like a trio that played, in a band, I'm thinking of Green Day, if you listen to that, three people playing music. The three of them had such a harmony that the underlying harmony was very stable, and because of that, there was a lot of protection there. And the vital energies, again, they say, how are the vital energies of either of the supporting members being depleted? Meaning that, say if Jim wanted to go out with his friends, I'm just making up stuff here. He wanted to go with his friends and drink and, have a bowl that night and come back the next day without sleep and all that stuff. He didn't take care of his vital energies. Not only does the harmony that Jim brought to the group was, broken, but also the supporting, which is, I'm not sure if they say, no, they finish it here. There's one more part. So, okay. The other part that is implied here, let me see if they said it. The instrument must be then used, larger portion of vital energies. Yes, this is, I can extrapolate from how remember Jim used to meditate and send love and light to Carla while the contact was going. So there was a, if you will, a devotion of Jim to give its vital energies. This is why when you say, I'm sending love and light to you, if you really mean it, because I know we just use the term like, hey, have a good morning. Now in the spiritual communities, we just say, hey, love and light. But when we truly mean it, and we really have a connection with the person, even if we don't know them, we really say love and light, like you're thinking about that person, you're sending some of your vital energies, to that person, which is, a heart-moved reaction to knowing the person, or just, be grateful for the person. This is all heart-oriented activities. So in any case, that's what Jim was doing. So that's why it's important, or was important, for them to have, this harmony, but then also their vital energies. They had to take care of their own vital energies. They were so devoted, though, that this was rarely a problem, if ever. So anyhow, we have more to cover. It's the last part of Ra's answer here, and they say, "Please understand that we ask your apology for this infringement upon your free will. However, it is our distortion understanding that you would prefer this information rather than being left totally to your own dedication distortions, deplete the instrument or deplete the group to the point where the contact cannot be sustained." So what do they mean by this? I think it's a very heartfelt, talking about heart actions, very loving way of Ra saying, "I'm sorry that we have to infringe upon your free will by telling you this, because this is something that you could figure out yourself, when you don't need us to tell you." So we're kind of like, it's almost like, they're processing for them the information, but because they prefer, to maintain the contact. You can see also that Ra wanted to maintain the contact. They were very happy with this contact. They were so grateful for it that, they didn't mind infringing upon their free will and, attaining to the consequences, And so, it's a beautiful thing. Like, from these paragraphs, you can take out so much of their interaction as personalities. Ra had a personality. Don, Jim, Carla, the three of them as one, and you can see these little things that are just, it's just like food for my soul, I would say. So, again, they say, being left to your own dedication distortions, deplete the instrument, but deplete the group. It's a very heartfelt, like, this is not wisdom. What Ra described here, and this is something that I'll probably keep saying over the next, 73 sessions that we may have left. Love and wisdom, love light, is a very important thing to keep in mind whenever we're assessing a metaphysical situation or a spiritual situation. So in this case, Ra is really acting with their heart by saying, we want you guys to be fine. We don't want you guys to deplete the instrument or yourselves even, for this contact to be maintained, because we really value it. And again, it's this is another point before going to the next question, to emphasize how the Ra contact is so beautiful, because they did what masters, teachers do with their students. Really wise masters or teachers, what they do with their students is allow them to make the questions, and they answer. And depending on the question, they will give certain answers, like we have seen so far. So from that point of view, we can see little things like this to show Ra's love to the contact, which, most of the time, and I think this is why the material is so hard to digest, is because we see a lot of wisdom that is Ra. Ra is balancing a lot of wisdom, because in the past they did a lot of love, actions. So in any case, I said I was really excited to talk about Catalyst, but I think I'm just excited in general today. So all right, let's go before I keep talking about my grandma and everything else. I don't know. So all right, 33.2, Don asks, can you give us advice on how to maintain the best possible condition for maintaining contact? It's another good question. Ra says, we have given information concerning the proper nurturing of this channel. Yes, they have. We therefore repeat ourselves only in two ways in general. Firstly, we suggest that rather than being, shall we say, brave and ignoring a physical complex weakness distortion, it is good to share this distortion with the group, and thus, perhaps, shall we say, remove one opportunity for contact, which is very wearing to the instrument, in order that another opportunity might come about in which the instrument is properly supported. Okay, so they've always, every session ends with Don asking, what can we do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? This is just another way of asking the same thing. And Ra says, we've given information already about nurturing this channel, plenty of it, 32 so far, I believe. or more, because there have been some questions there. In any case, they say they're going to repeat themselves in two ways. The first one is that, and this is actually something that they have phrased differently here, which really applies to us too. This is another lesson for us. This is why I love so much reading this material from a sixth density being, because all of this can be applied here. Not so much because they are of a higher densities, because we possess a higher density, higher self from the same density. So it's not like, I just don't want to depict the some sort of idolizing of any nature for anybody, for a human, or even a figure of God, which doesn't really exist. It's just a figment of our imagination, just to take away the responsibility that we are gods, or our responsibility as divine beings, whichever way you want to see it. In any case, what they're saying here is that take care of yourself. If you feel like you have a nagging pain or something that is going to worsen over time because you just want to commit to this, and this is again, an expression of love over wisdom. You want to give so much, you want to do so much for the other person or the other the event or the thing that you're doing, that you negate yourself. This is, what Jesus actually showed here as a higher density being, a total devotion with compassion and love for the human beings. Jesus was not too wise, and I know this may offend Christians in some way, but that's because they're not seeing the bigger picture of, what Jesus was. Jesus actually downscaled itself to be a full loving, because if Jesus was wise, he would not have gone through the process of showing you, or showing us, what to do, how to behave in a loving, fully loving way. It's almost like Jesus came here to radiate pure green light, color vibration. That's what Jesus did. It's not that he wasn't wise. His soul was, definitely wise, but he downscaled to that. So, you can see that in the illusory depiction of what Jesus was. Yes, as the being, he suffered a lot, but he learned a lot there too. He polarized himself tremendously, and now he is a fifth density being. According to Ra, at least in 1981, I believe he's still there. So, in that case, what I'm trying to say is that, devoting yourself too much to a cause is too much love. Some people are caught in that. Again, I said I'll repeat this, and it'll be a theme in my philosophy, because we have to understand these tools as something that we can use. It's not like we're in third density and we cannot use it until we get to fourth or fifth. We are capable, fully capable, of doing all the work here. This is why Gautama Siddhartha, just activated his rainbow body and became the Buddha here, because the work can be done here. And the point where I'm getting at is that wisdom is also attainable here. In fact, it is really abundant here. There is an abundance of green and blue ray here for the achievement of merging into indigo ray, if you follow what I mean. Love and wisdom brings to unity. So balancing that here is important. And the reason why I'm going on here is because we know that we have tendencies to be extremely loving and sacrificing the self, or too much to wisdom and sacrificing the possibility of giving love. So balance needs to be there. And in this case, they're depicting the possibility of using too much love for the contact itself and depleting, her vital energies by too much devotion. And they say, it's, in essence, they're saying, it's better if you just skip a session and, she recovers and we're fine, in case she has some sort of, physical weakness. So in any case, I don't want to make these too long. So much to talk about here. Just tremendous material. This session is great, at least this first part. So speaking of Jesus, we're going to talk about Jesus in the next video. So Ra continues. It says, secondly, the work begun in harmony may continue. Harmony, thanksgiving, and praise of opportunities and of the Creator. These are your protection. These are our suggestions. We cannot be specific, for your free will is of the essence in this context. As we said, We only speak to the subject because of our grasp of your orientation towards long-term maintenance of this contact. This is acceptable to us. So, not too much to say here. We established a pretty good foundation to see, how this works. Because once they're activated, let's say, and they have fully devoted to a session, they're saying, that the work begun in harmony will continue or may continue. Harmony, thanksgiving, and praise of the opportunities of the Creator. These are your protection. This is also something that we can use here. It's not specific of the raw contact. This is available use of the will to do things. If we want to begin something and we started with harmony, and we make sure that we have thanksgiving, which is an appreciation. The word may be a little bit misleading depending on how you define the concept or the term itself. But thanksgiving is just a feeling of appreciation for the opportunity that is presented to you. Praise of opportunities and of the Creator, precisely. Thanking the Creator is not, again, an external thing. It's thanking the creation. It's I would use the word more creation here, because the Creator, the thing is that they always assume that we know, at least at this point, that the Creator is everything. We are the Creator. So, as higher consciousness beings, which we are, we have responsibility to see everything as a garden, just like we raise a pet, or we raise children, or flowers, or plants. And again, I know that may sound terrible for some people who say, I just said, raise children, but it's the same thing. I mean, you're raising a being who is not yet at the level of consciousness where they can take care of themselves. So, not to put in with animals or plants, but you know what I mean. You don't take the wrong sense. I see the words can get so confused sometimes into thinking that people mean something, but you see the meaning behind what I'm saying. So, again, this is all about the contact. Let's finish it here. We're almost half hour in. We're not even to catalyst, so it's gonna be beautiful. All right, next question. We have a beautiful synchronicity here. 33, 33, 3. Don says, thank you very much. The instrument has a device for so-called color therapy. And since we are on, in the past session, the concept of the different colors, I was wondering if these, in some way, apply to the principle of color therapy in the shining of particular colors on the physical body. Does this have any beneficial effect? And can you tell me something about it? So, quick understanding of what this means. In the 80s, I guess they were devising, this is almost like, how they played with radioactive material in the beginning of the 19th or the 20th century, actually. And they play with other stuff that, because of ignorance, I mean, that was a lot more devastating than this. But it's almost like a primitive way of using the new things that we learn. This refers to shining colors to people and using the colors to kind of work, the chakras or the levels of consciousness, which you can see how rudimentary that may be, but again, 1981, it's not very well known. Science was not very developed, not that we are developed right now. But 40 years later, at least we can discern this. So that's what Don is asking, how beneficial is this to shine lights, colors through some light beams to the physical body. And Ra is going to say, this therapy, as you call it, is a somewhat clumsy and variably useful tool for instigating in an entity's mind-body-spirit complex an intensification of energies or vibrations, which may be of aid to the entity. The variableness of this device is due, firstly, to the lack of true colors used, secondly, to the extreme variation and sensitivity to vibration among your peoples. So, you can see that, they're saying that, yes, the therapy is a clumsy or primitive, rudimentary way of using this to instigate the intensification of energy. So, to bring an understanding. And again, I think this depicts what we said, in just at the beginning of the video. Scientific approach of doing things from the external. When we know that the best way to balance your energy centers is through your mind, you know that is an internal change that we have to do and not so much an external. So it's not like they were going to develop, I'm sure they would have tried, because that's the Western mentality of working from the outside in as opposed from the inside out. And we, I suppose they wanted to create some sort of like a chamber of something, you can maybe shine colors and people come out and lighten. So I don't know, maybe it's just me mocking more than I should, but I just think it's funny to think that way. Who cares anyways? So this is they say it's the variableness of this device is because the lack of true colors use. Of course, any reflection of the colors that we see right now is not a true color itself. A true color is a pure vibration of that energy. So, for example, pure green we cannot see. We can feel, we know what it feels like because we know compassion, love, and understanding. That is pure vibration, green color. So the green color that we see here, it's an analog. That doesn't help much. So that is the first thing. And secondly, the extreme variation of sensitivity to vibration among your peoples. Again, the word vibration helps a lot here, because sensitivity to vibration is what really creates the person to be able to receive that. If you're blocked in your lower chakras, then guess what? No matter how much green light I may, and I'm talking about even metaphysical light, trying to give you love and compassion, make you feel, listen, you're not a body, you're a spiritual being. You may not be receptive to that. So it's very variable, that sensitivity to vibration. Okay, so we'll go to the next question now, which still has to do with color therapy. Don says, I would think that you could achieve a true color by passing the light through a crystal of the particular color. Is this correct? Ross says, this would be one way of approaching accuracy in color. It is a matter of what you would call quality control that the celluloid used is a variant color. This is not a great or even visible variation. Note the word visible. However, it does make some difference given specific applications. So in essence, crystals are a little bit more in line with true color vibration. Because they shine those colors, it's almost like a validation that they can channel those energies. And that's why crystals are so well used in healing. And we have covered that material already. So the healer being able to channel pure energy is able to use also the crystals as analogs for the shining or balancing of those, and allowing, basically, because that's what's happening. You're using the crystal or device, I mean the crystal, to instigate, to make the person tune into that vibration. If they're blocked, guess what? It's not going to happen. If they're open, of course, a patient who is trusting their healer in this way, they will be open to do the inner work to allow the energy to flow through those energy centers, if that makes sense. So they say, okay, however, it does make some difference given specific applications. Again, it's just, I think it's a huge difference. They do say, huge difference between, the the simple light color that they could use through celluloid. So, which is a very, again, crude way of trying to apply colors to the energy centers. Let's put it that way. So the crystals are much better. And Don is going to elaborate on that in the next question, where he said, possibly the use of a prism, breaking white light into its spectrum and then screening off all parts of the spectrum except that which you wish to pass through a slit and use would be even better. Would this be true? Ra says this is correct. And again, just to finalize this point on the use of breaking down the prism of white light into the rainbows or the rainbow colors, then filtering out whatever, say you filter out just to keep on with consistency on green, and that shining upon the person, they say yes, that would be a better refinement. It's important to see what the question was, would this be better? And I think it's what Don said. And they said yes. It doesn't mean that, yes, that is the way for you to activate your green energy center. That's not the way to, balance your green energy center. No, they're just saying it is correct. That is a refinement of it, and much better than me using a plastic sheet that through light can beam some color. Way better to use that, or possibly the crystal. So who knows? In any case, that brings the end to that. And now let's dive into the content that is really, really exciting for me here. So, Don says, thank you. I was wondering if there is a programming of experiences that causes an individual to get certain catalysts in his daily life. For instance, as we go through our daily life, there are many things that we can experience. We look at these experiences as occurring by pure chance or by a conscious design of ours, like making appointments or going places. I was just wondering if there was a behind the scenes, I might call it, programming of catalysts to create the necessary experiences for more rapid growth in the case of some entities. Does this happen? So, we're going to go into Ra's answer, of course, with details and everything, but just to get, on the boat together here. What Don is saying is there's a programming of experiences that causes an individual to get certain catalysts in his daily life. Okay. We have a programming from our pre-incarnational decisions on how to live this life, a blueprint, if you will, of catalysts that will bring about experiences for us to process it. And that's what Don is asking, So they say, there's many things that we experience, and if there was behind the scenes programming of catalysts to create the necessary, like this question is phrased so well to me that it just brings about the whole process of what we do here, what life is all about, actually. And this is why I said, I'm really pumped to talk about this, because this is what really life is about. From a macro perspective, life is about sitting, in front of a river and simply watch it, with contemplation and a smile on your face and, eyes that pierce the whole planet's core and beyond to the stars and beyond the veil and everything else. I mean, that is what life is about. However, from the perspective of the wholeness of life, we are going through a school of third density, which brings about experiences that become catalysts or potential catalysts for us to grow. And the question is, what are we growing from? How are we growing? Also, what are those mechanisms behind? What is happening? And how do we use them for the best, to the best ability, that we can have? And so this is where the question is going to the web that is behind the scenes, that invisible web that is guiding us through the experiences, and it's making cyclical experiences happen, and it's making us see with better perspective or consciousness the things that we used to not be bearable of. So this is going to open that discussion, and I'm actually a little sad that there's not much to talk about, in terms of what they said, or at least not enough. I wish there was more, but it's very concise as usual what they say. So let's begin. 33.6 Ra responds and says, we believe we grasp the heart of your query. Please request further information if we are not correct. Ra says, the incarnating entity which has become conscious of the incarnative process and thus programs its own experience may choose the amount of catalyst, or, to phrase this differently, the number of lessons which it will undertake to experience and to learn from in one incarnation. This does not mean that all is predestined, but rather that there are invisible guidelines shaping events which will function according to this programming. So this is what, again, I gave a little bit of a background to what Ra was going to say, because this is just how it is. These are the lines that we call fate, when people say, well, that's your destiny, that's your fate, it's not about specific events. The events are illusory depictions of your true reality behind it and what you're trying to learn. It's almost like saying, the lessons that you got in school were the real deal. No, the lessons were, the catalyst that promoted the inspiration for you to learn those things by heart and not by just memorizing. So, in the same way, we're having the same process here in third density. We're only seeing it as not a lesson, but as an experience. And so our ability to discern the experience as a lesson as opposed to a happening to me, you can see how we can get so deep into the perception of the ego, how the ego can get involved and say, this is happening to me, there is a me that things are happening to. And from there, this is a very low level to analyze experience, but it's important because we all have to face it. But that is the lower centers of experience, how we perceive things, as an individual being, as a part of a social group, and so on. Once we go up to the higher understandings of reality from love and wisdom, then we can see that since we're not the body, that we're something beyond the body, then anything that has happened to the body must be a lesson to me. It's a logical conclusion to get to once we get into this discernment. So this really drives home the point that the perspective that we must see once we understand this, and this is not something that we can force on people. This is why trying to convince people, or trying to not even convince sounds terrible, but trying to make people see things the way we do, unless they have achieved a sort of vantage point of consciousness, they won't be able to, and we cannot force it, because we have to come to this understanding by heart, not because we read it somewhere. This is the same reason why people go through books and books and books of reading metaphysics and reading all kinds of conceptions of reality and Buddhism. There's so many books where you don't need books for Buddhism. Zen Buddhism has no books, and the books that have been written says, that this is not a book about Zen. Zen cannot be written, So in the same way, this information either it's gained by heart and you feel it and you live it, or you don't. So going back to the lesson itself, or to the mechanism, is when we see that we have this view of reality where we know that everything that's happening to us is a sort of curriculum that we created for ourselves. Then we have the possibility of absorbing that information and making it work for ourselves, as opposed to making it work against us, making us repeat that catalyst. So again, I know I'm taking a long time here. It's so beautiful. So they say, okay, phrase different, the number of lessons which it will undertake to experience and to learn from in one incarnation. This is the programming of the self. So the form maker, sixth density body, creates the incarnation, or in the incarnation creates a program of catalysts and says, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, we're gonna experience all these things and see how it goes. Once we come here, then we have our free will and our through the veil perception of ego self, and this all gets involved, and that's the game. The game is to break free from the perception of self that actually has this idea that we are separate, that idea that we are a being. Being separate is not so much of not seeing yourself in others, but also feeling yourself a victim. That is probably the worst part of separateness, is to feel yourself the victim. And this is why I always say, and if you watch my last video, or just last couple of videos when we talk about homosexuality, I really emphasize the point, which has nothing to do with homosexuality, but it brings up the point of labels, titles, identifications, anything that labels you as a separate being. It creates sensitivity to you, sensitizes you to you being a victim, because once you are separate, you are a target for for feeling alienated, and people will do that. You're supposed to feel this, actually, if you see it from this point of consciousness, because it's a lesson for you not to feel separate. So your sexuality, your identity, your color, your race, your status, social status, your beliefs of yourself, your religions, your anything that you can label yourself as will become a catalyst for you to experience separateness and to feel unity, because in separateness, through contrast, is where we learn. So the more isolated you feel, the more catalysts will come to show you the oneness of it. So I hope I'm making sense here. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, labels and identities only separate us more and we become more the victim, which is fine as long as we understand that the purpose of us feeling a victim is to see the lesson in oneness, because victim is separate and responsibility for the self is oneness. So, in any case, this does not mean that all is predestined, true, but rather that there are invisible guidelines shaping events which will function according to this programming. Okay, so because of the programming, it's not like it's predestined for you to have an accident or for you to win the lottery. It's just, that these programmings are there, and they they're shaping the event itself. It could be any event. They will take form depending on which catalyst you have chosen pre-incarnatively. So let's go to the next part before I keep going. We have so much more to cover, I feel. So Ra says, thus, if one opportunity is missed, another will appear until the, shall we say, student of the life experience grasps that a lesson is being offered and undertakes to learn it. Beautiful. See? All right. I love that I set the foundation for this to be understood even, faster. So we're not going to linger here too much. They're saying, okay, those one opportunities missed. Again, cyclical. If one opportunity is missed and you reject it and you say, you know what, I don't want to deal with this, I have other things to do, you are being respectful of yourself by saying, I'm putting it off, just putting it off, and it'll keep coming. That's what they say. The student of the life experience grasps, it'll happen again. Another will appear until the student basically grasps the lesson that is offered and undertakes to learn it. Learn it is accepting it as, something that became part of you, that it showed you something. How do you balance it? Through acceptance. You go through the process of accepting it as, not something that happened to you, but something that you created yourself. You take responsibility. You don't blame others. In the case of where that can be applied, and you don't feel a victim of nature or a victim of your own biology in that case. You just know, in case you have a disease, something you cannot cure through, however much you do, just accept it. So acceptance with faith is probably the best way we can go about this. So, all right, Don is going to ask another question, and he'll say, then these lessons would be reprogrammed, you might say, as a life experience continues. Let's say that an entity develops a bias that he actually didn't choose to develop prior to incarnation. It is then possible to program experiences so that he will have an opportunity to alleviate this bias through balancing. Is this correct? Ra says this is precisely correct, and I just love how Don was flowing with, the consistency of the questions here. Very well formulated, and when he says the lessons would be reprogrammed, is that the lessons will undergo a reprogramming. Again, the reprogram may mean, in my opinion, as the life experience continues, you see, so during the incarnation, this can be reprogrammed. I'll give you an example of that, because they say, okay, let's just finish up this. Let's say that an entity develops a bias that he actually didn't choose to develop prior to incarnation. Then possible to reprogram or to program experiences so that he will have an opportunity to alleviate this bias through balancing. So this is a great example. A lot of people have they have catalyst and they don't process it, because you're supposed to process it here mentally. You have the power here in your mind. But if you keep putting off, the experience itself, the catalyst that you're supposed to lesson, then your body will take on that lesson and it'll show up or manifest as disease. Again, not trying to scare you or anything. That's not the point. But it is the mechanism in which it happens. Shamans will tell you this. New Age energy healers will tell you this. And, they will tell you that energy. I mean, we talk about emotional baggage. I forgot what it's called. Oh my God, I worked with Ron. Hopefully Ron's not watching this. It'll come to me, the term. But it's trapped emotions. So there we go. Ron, if you're watching this, I learned. So trapped emotions are a way that the body, deals with this emotional baggage, and it'll eventually, show up as a disease. It could be cancer, it could be tumor, it could be, some sort of imbalance within the organ, it could be something like that. That is how it is reprogrammed if the person is not being able to process it mentally. You are given opportunities over and over and over. This is why traumas are so important to be healed, and they are the first ones to be healed through your lack of security or your insecurities, your fears, your whatever. All of that is manifested through because of the trauma. So if you work through that, you will heal your traumas, at least one way. I'm not saying this is the one way, but as you do that, you clear yourself from that emotional baggage and become healthy as you're supposed to be, depending on the catalyst that hasn't been processed. So that is one way. It can be reprogrammed in other ways, and I just don't know. I don't have the means to truly say how they can be reprogrammed, but it could be, in other ways. It could be, say, if it was a sort of girlfriend that was coming to you, and just making you feel, whatever, insecure because you weren't manly enough, or you weren't, sensitive enough. Could be too. And you didn't process that well, and you felt guilty with yourself. Then it might stop being, the girlfriend or your girlfriends that did that to you. It would become, say, maybe your daughter now. It could be somebody else. It could be now, a friend or whatever. That's just my way of trying to come up with ideas of how this can be programmed. But as long as you see the repeating lesson, that is what's happening. So, all right. So Ra says this is precisely correct. And we're going to go to one of the last questions that we have. Don says, thank you. Then from this, I would extrapolate to the conjecture, I will say, that the orientation and mind of the entity is the only thing that is of any consequence at all. The physical catalyst that he experiences, regardless of what is happening about him, will be a function strictly of his orientation and mind. I will use as an example that was deleted, this being a statement of the orientation and mind governing the catalyst. Is this correct? All right, so this question is very structured, very, intellectual. So, in essence, what Don is asking is, does the direction of the mind affects, basically, the catalyst? They say, or he says, the orientation in the mind, the entity is the only thing that is of consequence at all. Yeah, of course. Your orientation of mind will be the not the consequence, I wouldn't use that word, but what's really important, the only thing that matters really is the orientation of the mind. Let's put it that way. The physical catalyst that he experiences, regardless of what is happening about him, will be a function strictly of his orientation and mind. Sure, depending on the orientation of the mind, the experience, the catalyst experience would be related to that, depending on the orientation of the mind. And we're going to get some examples on that. Because Don used an example and was deleted. You'll see why, which again, it reinforces the beauty of the contact and the information transmitted through Ra to the LNL research group, and the quality of the information is just what's so beautiful. Again, this being a statement of the orientation and mind governing the catalyst. Is that correct? So let's go into what Ra has to say about the orientation of the mind and catalyst itself. So Ra says, we prefer not to use any well-known examples, sayings, or adages in our communications to you due to the tremendous amount of distortion which any well-known saying has undergone. Therefore, we may answer the first part of your query, asking that you delete the example, which they did. It is completely true, to the best of our knowledge, that the orientation or polarization of the mind-body-spirit complex is cause of the perceptions generated by each entity. Beautiful. Okay, so first of all, big thing here, when they say, we prefer not to use examples, sayings, or anything that is known, that is well known, because then they will give power to that. So say, I'm not sure if Don used an example of a person and they deleted the person and the example, or if they just used, like, say, a saying, or an adage, like in the sense that saying, you reap what you sow, like that's a saying. You get what you deserve, whatever. Because of the power that we have given to that, if they say, yes, that's true, then people would say, oh, yes, this is how it happens. You reap what you sow. And they don't go further. The purpose of this material is for you, and this is something that I encourage all the time, is for you to take the material, to really digest what they said and see what it feels to you, or feel what it feels to you. Because they took so much care to not use, and I'm sure that like other topics that can be a little controversial and or simply diversified into different meanings, then you can see that this is it's a very delicate thing to do with words, because we give too much value to words. That is our problem. Again, it's a Western problem. The Orientals, the Eastern philosophy, actually emphasizes this. The words have no meaning. I mean, they're a simple tool, very primitive tool to communicate. We shouldn't attribute any meaning to it. But no, Western civilization is based upon, no metaphysics, no energetics, none of that, and we give too much value. So that's why they said, this is very important that we don't use any of that, because we don't want to give power to that. So they answer the question that it is true, to the best of their knowledge, that the orientation or polarization of the person. So if your orientation is to manipulate others, then yes, the catalyst that you will perceive will be, used for that. It will become your catapult for that, if you want to. It really depends on the orientation of the mind. So what you perceive as good, I may perceive as bad, because I have a different orientation. What you perceive as, something not to do, I will perceive it as, something that I will exploit. It will reflect what you have inside. And true reflection is really to see, is my reaction to the catalyst or to the experience what is desirable for me by my conscious orientation. And that is what true reflection is. Reflection in the way of introspection. So that's what they're saying here. It really depends. And polarization is another great word that they use here, because that really empowers polarization in that sense. All right, let's go on. Ross says, thus a scene may be observed in your grocery store. The entity ahead of self may be without sufficient funds. One entity may then take this opportunity to steal. Another may take this opportunity to feel itself a failure. Another may unconcernedly remove the least necessary items, pay for what it can, and go about its business. The one behind the self, observing, may feel compassion, may feel an insult because of standing next to a poverty-stricken person, may feel generosity, may feel indifference. And all right, so the next slides, they say, I'm just going to read it since I did the transition already. Do you now see the analogies in a more appropriate manner? Let me go back to this. It's just this is so awesome. First of all, they said, let's not use a well-known example. So they give an analogy, right? And the analogy used here is that a person, first of all, is a scene. A scene where a person is, it's going to pay for something. It doesn't have sufficient funds, doesn't have enough money. So see the orientation of the mind and how it can be perceived and how it can be used. This is an experience. It provides catalyst. Catalyst has no polarity. Catalyst is just what it is. It's like, okay, that underlying potential that lies there to see how are you going to react? How are you going to react to this? And they say, okay, I love the way they put it, because they kind of like show the ability to see yourself through the energy centers too. So, okay, so you're going to pay, you don't have enough money, and one entity or one person that doesn't have, like say, me, I don't have enough money to pay, so I will steal instead because I want that. Another person may feel the opportunity to feel itself a failure, so it's just feeling worthless. Oh my God, I don't have enough money, you know, I'm a failure, I'm unworthy of this. Another may simply just say, meh, you know, I'll just not pay for this, pay for what I have, go about my business. This is not important. That's a person that is completely unconcerned with anything. Heart. It sounds to me. The person who steals is more into the survival and kind of one-to-one type of, you know, like red-orange ray. And the person that feels a failure may be very well yellow, because you feel a failure in comparison to others in the group. So that is a yellow ray blockage to me. Stealing may be a red ray or an orange ray, depending on how you see it. And the other one might be just like green ray, whatever. I don't care. The one behind the self, so the other person that is watching, observing, may feel compassion, heart, green ray. May feel an insult because of standing next to a poverty-stricken person. That's yellow ray, you know, feeling like, oh my God, why am I here? You know, I should go to a higher standard, you know, let me go to Whole Foods. I'm joking. May feel generosity, you know, that's again, heart chakra, or even blue ray, because you're now expressing, it's not compassion only, but you're in generosity. You may say like, hey, hold on, I'll pay for your stuff, brother. Out of love, you act, you communicate yourself in an honest and, you know, truthful way. That is blue ray to me. And another may feel indifference, you know, that's the probably orange ray, like, meh, I don't care, whatever, you know, that's his business. Unpolarized, of course. So you can see the beauty of these examples. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this energy. I have too much vital energy in me today. So let me see if I think we have one more question. We'll cover this last question, I believe. Yes. All right. So Don says, yes, I do see the analogy. That's the question that Rana asked. So Don says, yes, I do. Then from this, I will extrapolate a concept which is somewhat more difficult because, as you have explained before, even fourth density positive has the concept of defensive action. But above the fourth density, the concept of defensive action is not in use. The concept of defensive action and, he laughs or chuckles, offensive action are very much in use in this, our present experience. So there's a golden nugget hidden here that I'll try to explain. So he says, okay, from this I'll extrapolate the concept which is somewhat more difficult because, as you have explained before, even 4 density positive has the concept of defensive action, but above the 4 density, the concept of defensive action is not in use. This is something that goes back to, if you remember when we talk about the battle between Orion and the Confederation, Ra said that the battle takes place in 4 density, because in 5th density, in essence, they know better. They know better not to engage in a manipulative action. And I'll make an example here with 3rd density. So in 4th density, love and compassion, 4 density beings, they just want to give that love. And they're looking at the negative beings and say, you know, I mean, with true compassion, they say, you are me. I want to be, you know, your friend. Let's be friends. Let's hug. You know, and the negatives are saying, no, we just want to manipulate you. And they're saying, no, we can't be manipulated because we love you. And they're like, well, we love you, but we want to use you. And they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, man. So I can't help you. I lose polarization. Oh, I can't manipulate you. I lose polarization. That's happening in 4 density. That is the battle. It's not, you know, no missiles, no, you know, swords or psychic attacks and stuff like that. I know David Wilcock likes talking about that stuff. I think it's very, you know, poetic of him to say. I don't believe that's what's happening. But again, you know, just everybody depicts it in its own way. But in 5th density, you become more aware, more wise, and say, well, I mean, I'm not going to try to convince you because you're in the negative path, and now I understand what your purpose is here, so I'll leave you alone. Don't talk to me. And, you know, I'll just do my business. And the 5th density is going to say, like, well, I do see you're in the positive path, which, wisely, I would not engage and try to manipulate you. So there's no battle. There's no need for battle. Sixth density and beyond, of course, doesn't happen. So that's where Don is extrapolating this and saying that, this is because of this happening in here in third density, does that happen? And I'll give you the example just to finish up the talk about this, is that, okay, so imagine a very hard, actually probably a little sensitive, but I'll use it. Somebody who's always, giving to a person and is encouraging the self-destructive person who is manipulating him or her, to behave in certain ways. So there's a negative person trying to manipulate him, beating this person, or, encouraging psychopathic behaviors. And the other person being full compassion, no wisdom, 4 density, purely heart, will be their slave. They would just, be there trying to give love, and the other person is abusing. That is, an encounter that happens. If the person grows, becomes wise, and realizes that even though you want to give love, that person is a self-destructive individual, you will reject and withdraw from the situation. That is evolution of the soul. That is growth in catalyst of experience, because you are growing from that. So that is a really good example of what's happening in fourth and fifth density. And here it would happen too. If you become wise and realize that a relationship is not working for you, whether that be, a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a boss at work, or a brother, could be your sister, sibling, whatever, friends, anybody can enact that on you, and you have the discernment to see it that way. The thing is not to reject with indifference, but reject in wisdom, of knowing that you want to give love and you're always available to give that love, but not to sacrifice yourself. Sacrifice is from fourth density, love over wisdom, meaning that there is an imbalance of love over wisdom. So, all right, we're over the hour already, and we have the last question here, which, again, I think Don has more to say to this, and says, I am assuming that if an entity is polarized strongly enough in this thought in a positive sense, defensive action is not going to be necessary for him, because the opportunity to apply defensive action will never originate for him. Is this correct? Radis says this is unknowable. In each case, as we have said, an entity able to program experiences may choose the number and the intensity of lessons to be learned. It is possible that an extremely positively oriented entity might program for itself situations testing the ability of self to refrain from defensive action, even to the point of the physical death or self or other self. This is an intensive lesson, and it is not known, shall we say, what entities have programmed. We may, if we desire, read this programming. However, this is an infringement, and we choose not to do so. So, beautiful answer. First, again, the question that Don said, applying that that understanding, a person that has, this is a really good question actually. A person that has a, hard, positive, polarized, will not, or actually, wisdom in this case, will not go into defensive actions. And Ross says, this is unknowable. This is not, it's impossible to know, because you may be a sixth density wanderer, or a fifth density wanderer, or even, Jesus. I just used it fits perfectly again, because you can see that Jesus, when Jesus said that, he finally realized what happened, and if you've watched Game of Thrones, something happened to Rhaegar there too. When Rhaegar was, this quiet person, and then he comes back, from Summerhall and saying, I think it's Summerhall, where he says, I need to become apparently a hero, or whatever he said. So the same thing happened to Jesus. Jesus realized what was his purpose, and once he realized that, he said, oh, okay, I need to do this, but this is my purpose in life. That was his physical, what do they call it? Programming, physical programming of catalyst, going up to the point of physical death. Do you think Jesus was not wise enough to realize what was happening? I mean, he was initiated. He went through the process. Some people say he went to Egypt or somewhere else, it doesn't matter. He was initiated by any means through gnosis, which is really what came out of him in his teachings. Through gnosis, he knew what was, his purpose here, and he did it. He did it to the physical death because he applied himself. Even though he had wisdom, he knew that his program was to show the world what was love, what was compassion, and full understanding through his crystallization of being. And this is why Jesus is such a powerful figure, because it depicts a crude reality of what humans are from one way and the other. So in any case, Jesus is going to be discussed, funny enough, in the next video, a little bit, not too much in depth. Like we have session 17. If you haven't watched that, go watch it. That's where we talk about Jesus in the Law of One. So this is an intensive lesson, and it is not known. It's not known for the individual or for anybody, for that matter. Them of sixth density, they can actually see programming. That's a cool feature of being a sixth density being. They can see the programming in people, but they cannot talk about it. I mean, that would be an infringement to talk about, oh yeah, you were programmed this way, or that person was programmed. It's almost like, intimacy. You keep intimacy. You have some ethics, man. Some space-time, time-space ethics. So, in any case, that is the answer to this. It really depends on your programming. How far do you want to go? Some people may have that. I don't think many will have that extreme. They said this is an intensive lesson. That's, to me, that sounds like extreme. It's very extreme. It's not very very understandable. So in any case, or not understandable. It's not very common, and it is also not understandable from our perspective. So again, this is all I have. I can go on for a long time here because we're talking about the process of experience, which is an everyday thing that brings about catalysts, and I can go on. So my conclusions here, of course, are going to be in terms of how you use this. From now on, I will be talking about more on the importance of knowing where we are at, not only in our physical universe, which is third density. I'll call that a universe, which is third density, but also in our fractal hologram of the Creator. All seven densities right here. You have them. You are the universe. You are a microcosm of the universe. Why am I saying this? Because as we learn these lessons, we know that certain numbers, let's call it numbers in terms of energy centers, these energy centers provide a sort of experience that needs to be understood, learned, processed, accepted, and transcended from. And there is a division from first density or first energy center, red ray, which is a strong experience of coming from the unformed to the form, from the formless to the form, to the informed. So that's a strong 1, 3, 5 are the most important ones in terms of experience, because it's external experience that informs you. Whereas 2, 4, and 6, orange, green, indigo, are more introspective, more internal realization. So there is an external realization, there is an internal realization, external, internal, and you can see that from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, meaning red ray to orange, acceptance, identity, yellow ray to green, acceptance again, and identity of everybody as the self. And then you go on to 5th and 6th to the realization of everybody as the Creator. So these are important steps. We can use these all the time in our experiences to see what the experience is telling you about you in those steps, in whatever those steps may be. Is it survival? Are you alive? Okay, that's all that matters. It's easy one. Then 3 is the intense one again. What does this mean to you? How do you feel in the group? How do you see the other person that acted upon you? What did the person do? If it's the other self, then I have taught myself something, whether the experience was nasty or not. That is my perception. That is my discernment. That is my bias, because you were nasty to me. What you did to me, I can consider nasty, and another person may consider, awesome. Thank you for doing that, because of the perception. And that is, a strong, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a strong experience that we need to process. And then again, from 5th is understanding each other as the creator, which is beyond, the scope of this this conclusion, or where I want to go, is to know that these are the tools. Remember, and if you want to go a little deep into what 5th work is, Blu-ray. So not to call it 5th density, to believe that we need to achieve 5th density to work this. Blu-ray is about communicating honestly who you are, so you can understand, that the others also have something to communicate to you in the same position as a creator. So you work with love to acquire wisdom externally. If you work only to reflect yourself in another person, then you're limiting yourself to seeing yourself. You're not working through love, which is open to the others, so you can see the reflection of them into you as the creator. You learn more the identity of creator of yourself by knowing others, because they are all depicting the creator to you. So that is, not to go deep again into that. This is something that, again, I'll talk about, in as often as it's reflected in the material. But it is important, and that's that to me is it's a really good tool to have. So in essence, the way to recap this whole session for me in the conclusion is to use these experiences through the different points of consciousness that we know that we have activated already, and that we are working to energize, and we're working to activate even further. Further along the chain if you haven't, or just develop it even more, balance it, because once it's open, you need to balance it. All this work is through the experience, the constant experience that you're getting, and analyzing it beyond the body, beyond the 3 energy centers at the bottom, where you just transcend from duality, you transcend from the body, from the identity of self, the ego, and all that stuff. Then you can do more work. So with that, I want to thank you so much if you watch all this. For me, it was super rewarding to be able to just express all this, record it in a video, and putting it out here for whoever wants to watch it. It's a good time to say subscribe, share, like, do the whole thing, interact, leave comments, whatever. This really helps the channel to grow. I'm only interested in that because I feel like there's more people who can get a little glimpse onto what they're seeking, through this information. I do my best always to just reflect what I read, what I see, what I feel. It's not final. It's not the ultimate interpretation, of course. There is no ultimate interpretation. The ultimate interpretation is what you make out of it. So with that in mind, thank you so much again for watching. I really appreciate you. I love the comments that you guys leave. I'm always, looking and checking, to see if I can add more stuff. Follow me on Instagram or in Facebook too, if you want to watch more Law of One content. I'm creating more of that stuff there. But all ads aside of my personal stuff, or not my personal stuff, but other social media, that's it. I'll see you in part 2 of session 33.